Module 4, Interactive Copywriting. Video 3, Copywriting for Banner Ads. Here's what you'll learn. You'll learn banner ad writing's unique challenges and opportunities. We'll discuss the dynamics of a banner ad. We'll go through crafting the message of a banner ad. And then finally, we'll talk about how they're tested. Challenges and opportunities. First, and very obviously, banner ads are small, and as such, you are very limited in the amount of copy that you can use. Even banner ads that are dynamic and rotate through multiple frames still don't offer you much space at all for copy. Also, people glaze over them, look right past them, maybe even actively avoid them. People haven't requested to see your banner, and you're trying to actually distract them from what they came to do on a page. They're trying to read an article or purchase something or play a game, and your banner ad is not part of the experience that they want to have. So you have to really work hard to get their attention. Also, many banner ads rotate through multiple frames. We'll talk about this more in a few moments, but that also means that you can't tell which frame people will see first. If you have a 3-frame banner ad, you can't tell if it's going to catch their eye at frame 1, frame 2, or frame 3. Most rotating banner ads stop in the last frame after 3 loops, so you have to put the most important information on that frame with your call to action, without making any copy redundant on the other frames. So, if someone notices the banner ad on frame 1 and watches frame 1, 2, and 3, it has to be a cohesive message that isn't redundant at all. But also, if they notice it on frame 2 and see frame 2 and 3, it still has to be a cohesive message that isn't redundant. And if they notice it just on frame 3, or after it's stopped on frame 3, it still has to be a full and complete message. It's very challenging. However, banner ad copy is ripe for creativity. Usually, the more unexpected it is, the more people will click on it, or at least remember it. Studies have shown that even if people don't click on a banner ad, they do retain the information or seek out a company on a search engine. So if you can do something that's completely out of the box and really catch their attention, you're way ahead of the game. The medium also allows for movement, video, interactivity, and sometimes even sound. This all depends on how it's built, and there are actually many great companies out there that can add video, sound, and interactivity if your company isn't able to do that themselves. They'll work with you to kind of craft it, but they'll put together these more complicated elements. This tends to be a little bit more expensive, however, it's possible, and they're making advances on a daily basis so that it gets easier and easier for even in-house developers to do all kinds of interesting things. Banner ads are also a great way to test a message to an audience. You can run 2 different banner ads on the exact same page in the exact same space so that half of the audience that goes to the page sees one banner and the other half of the audience sees the other banner. Writing for banner ads is also great practice at learning to be concise. This is your opportunity to really get serious about using shorter words and working within strict design limitations. It's one of those, it's difficult, but it's good for you things. Another somewhat recent development in the realm of banner ads is retargeting ads. A retargeting ad is an ad for a site served up to someone who has already visited the site, but left without taking the desired action. So if you went on a hotel booking site and left without booking a hotel, if that site is running retargeting ads, you would see ads for that site on lots of different web pages that you visit. Retargeting ads run on a network, so the hotel site can buy ads to have them served up to you across the network instead of on specific sites with specific placements. The cool thing about retargeting ads for marketers is that you're serving up the ad to someone who's very likely and at least somewhat interested in what you have to offer. That allows you to be much more specific and potentially creative with your message. The makeup of a banner ad. When you and your designer are creating your banner ad, you'll probably be working with one of a series of standard sizes like 728 by 90, 300 by 250, etc. The first number is the width in pixels, and the second number is always the height in pixels. But what does that mean? How big is a pixel? Because computer screens are different sizes and display different total numbers of pixels in the horizontal and vertical directions, there's no exact translation for what these measurements would be on paper. However, for your writing purposes, you have to have some idea of what you're working with. So you can estimate about 72 pixels per inch. So 728 by 90 is roughly, very, very roughly, 10 by 1.25 inches. 10 by 1.25 inches. Now, again, you'd only see it that size on a very big monitor, so don't bank on those inches numbers too much. On my tiny MacBook Air, for example, it's closer to 133 pixels per inch instead of 72. The most important thing to understand is that you're dealing with a size that's really long and really short, that's 728 by 90, and that's going to affect how you can write the copy. Traditional banner ads can be either static or dynamic. Out of 72. The most important thing to understand is that you're dealing with a size that's really long and really short, that's 728 by 90, and that's going to affect how you can write the copy. Traditional banner ads can be either static or dynamic. We started to talk about this a little bit earlier. Static banner ads only show one frame. They don't move at all. Essentially, it's just a picture, but it should still have your benefit and your call to action, and probably a button to take that action. Dynamic banner ads, on the other hand, rotate through a series of frames. Most commonly, it's 3 frames with 3 times through before ending on the last frame and staying there. Other types of banner ads use flash animation or other types of coding to animate them, and so the banner looks a little bit more like a video than a banner, but it still faces those same banner ad constraints. When it comes to writing the banner ad, the first thing you need to know before you can even put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard are the size of the banner ad and what type of banner ad it is. You need to know if it's static or dynamic, because that's obviously going to affect how long your message can be. And you need to know what the pixel size is, because that affects how long it's going to be, and then also what you can fit in there. You'll need to get across your benefit and your call to action, of course, just like anything else you do in copywriting. And by the way, even curiosity banners need some kind of benefit, some kind of reason for people to click. If you're working really outside the box and you're trying to catch people's attention and you're trying to intrigue them, you still need to give them some kind of purpose for clicking. You can't just do crazy for the sake of being crazy. It may catch their attention, but they're not going to retain anything about your brand. When it comes to a banner ad, you'll almost always get a better click-through rate if you include a button. However, many people don't understand that a button isn't necessarily the call to action. It can be, but it doesn't have to be the only one. For example, if after a benefit-laden subject line you write, "Sign up for our free newsletter," and then follow that with a button that says, "Get me on the list," you really have kind of a two-part call to action, since both the line and the button are inciting you to take action. Just know ahead of time that many people will equate call to action with button or link copy, and it's not quite as simple as that. In your banner ad, though, you should probably have a button, and your button can either be your call to action or support it, depending on how much information you need to give. Also, remember that in multi-frame dynamic banner ads, you can't control at which point in the loop they'll see it, so you need to hook them in with something compelling on each frame. If they start looking at frame 1, you have to hook them on frame 2, on 1. If, however, they miss frame 1 and they start looking at frame 2, then you have to hook them on frame 2, and the same thing with frame 3. This is part of what makes it so challenging. The last frame needs to encapsulate your message and contain your call to action, because if they don't catch any of the rotations, the ad will stop on that last frame and stay there. So it still needs to make it easier for the viewer to understand the message and understand your call to action. You don't have to limit your call to action to just the last frame, though. You could have your call to action and or your button on each frame if that works best with your concept. As in an email, whatever you reference in the banner ad needs to be delivered on the landing page. It should be a seamless transition after they click. Any information you promise, any steps you promise should be there. Remember, you're their guide, so if you meet up with them on the banner ad, you're taking their hand and you're leading them through to the landing page. There should be nothing that's a surprise there. Creating a banner ad is an opportunity to get up close and personal with your designer. You two are going to be joined at the hip, since after you concept and after you write it, you're going to have to work together to make sure that everything you both want to include will literally fit within the banner. Your design partner can try to shrink the copy, but type can only get so small and still be readable. It may be, too, that some words are simply too long for your banner, especially the tall, narrow ones. Brevity is key. In a dynamic ad, people have only a few seconds to read what you write before the panel changes, and that assumes that they even notice it in time to have those full few seconds. Your designer actually has control over how long it is before each panel changes, but you want to keep that down to just a few seconds. If you don't, then people won't know that it's actually animated. But of course, your designer also has to be sure to leave enough time for people to read your message. It's definitely a balancing act, and you should read it through several times to make sure that people have time to read the whole message before it goes to the next frame. Also, as we talked about, you're already interrupting the reader. No one wants to spend a lot of time reading an ad that has disrupted what they're on the page to do, even if they're interested in the ad. If you catch their attention, make sure it's a quick payoff. Let them know exactly what you have to offer so that you're not interrupting them and it's not overly annoying. Make your message very simple and easy to understand. If you can swap a less complicated word for a more complicated one, do it. Obviously, keeping in the less complicated word. And your call to action should be very strong, very clear, and even somewhat urgent, because you're trying to attract their attention and get them to take an action at that moment. So instead of, browse our large selection of books, your CTA should be something more like, find the book that you want right now. Your brand voice should guide you, but within that voice, the tone should tend towards strength, clarity, and urgency. The most important testing metric for your banner ads will always be your CTR, your click-through rate, with the conversion rate as a secondary consideration. Just like with emails, if the banner ad doesn't intrigue them, doesn't interest them, they're not going to click through. So if you have a low CTR, your banner ad is not doing the job that it should be. And also, like with emails, if the conversion rate is low once they get to the page, it could be that there's something in the banner ad that's not preparing them for what they find on the landing page. Your CTR is a more direct measurement, but you also want to pay attention to your conversion rate when you're testing your banner ads. Bounce rate will also be measured, and like the conversion rate, it's worth at least considering as you test your ads. As we discussed, banner ads are also really great for A/B testing. You can run the same placement of an ad with two different small changes, or even two different concepts altogether, and if the audience is a large one, if they get a lot of traffic on that page, you can get these results back pretty quickly. It's kind of amazing. You may hear terms like CPC, which stands for cost per click, and CPM, which stands for cost per thousand, but that actually has to do with the rate that your company or client is paying to run the ad, and it's not a metric that affects you. It obviously affects your client or your company, but it's not directly affecting the creative. Next steps. Start looking at the banner ads on the websites that you visit. Stop ignoring them. Which ones draw you in enough to click? Why? And which ones do you find to be utterly skippable? And what makes them utterly skippable? What makes a good banner ad for you? And now that you've mastered banner ads, it's time to learn all about writing for mobile in Video 4.